Here. This is Doc Ock at noon and 9, coming to you live today from Black Facts Headquarters Central. Let's just see what we got going on over here. Yeah. Okay, so we should be good there. All right. And we'll start off today with a proverb for the day. Today's proverb is, let's see what we got here. Home affairs are not talked about on the public square. And that's a proverb from Kenya. Home affairs are not talked about on the public square. Well, that one should be familiar to most everybody because we have proverbs like that here as well. And that's a Kenyan proverb. All right. Let's see. Poem today is a poem by Stajabu. And it goes right along with our theme for today because we're going to be reading here about African responses to Malcolm X. The name of the poem by Stajabu is Power to the People. They trying to run a game on us. We know it ain't right. Always talking about some war they want us to fight. While our air is polluted, the water is bad, and we got more chemicals in our food than we ever had. They talking newspeak, fork-tongue politics to give us distracted and to keep us distracted and off balance. With their dirty tricks, FCC, DOD, DOE, the big money people taking over control. And newspapers selling their soul for money machines, and don't forget oil. Causing blood to spill on many a nation's soil. Every day you see where someone got caught. Lying, spying, stealing, cheating, or someone got bought. They got a scandal over here, a scandal over there. Here a scandal, there a scandal, everywhere a scandal, scandal. Enron here, Dubai there, here a Katrina, there a BP. Everywhere a scandal, scandal. Walmart here, Wall Street there, FDA, CIA, NSA, NRA, everywhere scandal, scandal. Throw your fist in the air and pump it like you really do care. And if you're tired of corruption, and you want to do something, everybody, say, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. If you believe in justice and you believe in peace, everybody say, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And that's a poem by our sister, Stajabu, one of the straight out scribes, presenting some different vibes that you're not going to hear on TV because they're too busy lying and flying and trying to make us start crying. But our sister right here, she's here to help preserve the truth while we do our thing here in our little booth. And right about now, we're going to continue on with our essay on African responses to Malcolm X. You know, we were in Ghana last time we were talking, and we're still there. When we finally arrived in Accra, we drove directly to the Ghanaian Press Club. Malcolm was to be the guest of honor at a press soiree that had been organized by the Association of Ghanaian Journalists and Writers. We parked our car and then proceeded to squeeze through a long line of chauffeur-driven Mercedes, Benzes, and other expensive European automobiles, which are owned by party and government officials. We were greeted by Mr. Kofi Batsa. Is that right? Batsa, Secretary General of the Pan-African Union of Journalists and a director of the Ghana Graphic Company Limited. How did you like our reactionary university, said Kofi Batsa to Malcolm. Malcolm smiled sympathetically and replied, I always enjoy talking to my brothers and my sisters. As we moved to the beautifully decorated terrace, Malcolm turned suddenly and remarked, was Mr. Batsa serious? No one replied. Malcolm's new bodyguards were very protective. Not many people could get near him, and the few who did were those very important people whom they thought he should meet. But Malcolm wanted to meet everyone, and from time to time he broke through the invisible black wall that surrounded him. The journalists had been very nice to Malcolm since his arrival. He had been given a press conference the day before and had received excellent coverage in all of the local papers, including the Daily Graphic, a somewhat less radical news medium. The press soiree was fabuloso. There were excellent Ghanaian dishes supported by excellent imported drinks and a very excellent domestic palm wine. Got to have that palm wine, you know that's right. And since Malcolm never drank, he, unlike the rest of us, had more room for the delicious fried fish and fried plantains. After a long and pleasant evening, the Malcolm X committee, which had formed to organize Malcolm's visit, drove him back to the hotel. Our long days of preparation and planning for the arrival of Malcolm X had paid off. The Ghanaians seemed pleased and excited about him, and he was pleased and excited about them. The drive back to the hotel was a quiet one. No one spoke a word. We were all exhausted, elated, and I believe that a few of us were thinking about the students at the university. Malcolm sat in the front seat and looked straight ahead. Once or twice he turned his head to speak, but it seemed as though he could not bring himself to shatter the strange and pleasant quietness which filled our car. The only sounds came from the roadside. Most of the Ghanaians were asleep, for morning comes very quickly in the tropics, and there is always a frantic hurry to beat the noonday heat. But the night people were always there, cooking by the side of the road, bringing their goods to the public market, or praying while watching their black masters and sometimes white masters' houses. When we finally arrived at the beautiful Ambassador Hotel, a tall and proud Hausa doorman opened the car door on Malcolm's side, stood back, and Malcolm stepped down. Malcolm stretched his long arms and quietly said, "Good night." By the next morning, the cry of Malcolm X had swept the university. Mensa Sarba Hall seemed to be the center of excitement. This was no doubt due to the fact that the Marxist Forum had its headquarters there. The Chinese-style architecture, which formed the three buildings into a kind of medieval courtyard, made the excitement that much more real. Since I was a member of the Malcolm X committee, I wanted to have an early breakfast in order to take the 8 a.m. bus to Accra. But I had come to breakfast early for another important reason. I wanted to hear what the students would say about Malcolm X the morning afterward. I didn't have to wait long. Students filed in by the dozens, pushing and excited as usual, and shouting the slogan which they had chanted the night before: Malcolm X, Malcolm X, Malcolm X. You could have been on 125th Street and 7th Avenue. The excitement and spirit of the people were the same, and it seemed so strange. The people in Harlem cheered Malcolm because they lived and knew they would die in the world in which they all hate. These students who cheered Malcolm the night before and who kept his name on their beautiful lips the morning after came from villages and towns which Malcolm would never see, where some of their kin had died of malaria, where there was no running water and no electricity. These were children of the Second World War whose mothers and fathers had told them about the first cries of independence. These students had experienced neither the brutal world of British colonialism nor the world of quiet hell which Malcolm X had brought to them. Yet they sounded like the youth in Harlem, Watts, Rochester, and Bed-Stuy, exploding with joy and giving themselves up to the essence of things. Students who had publicly criticized me and debated my political views came over, shook my hands, congratulated me on the success of the forum, and told me how much they enjoyed Mr. X. Some said that Mr. X was dynamic. Others said he was militant, but they all said he was so honest. I felt very good. It was difficult not to cry. I wanted to hold each one of them because I loved them all. And Malcolm had made it all possible, and none of us would ever forget that. As I got up to leave for the bus, Harold Dugan, the first West Indian student to study at the university and the vice chairman of the forum, came into the dining hall and stood on the top of one of the center tables. He shouted, "When a brother is beaten up in the West by a white gang, or East," one student interrupted, "or East," Dugan continued, "we shall beat one of their white brothers here. And not in gang style, but man to man." As I left the dining hall, Dugan was being carried shoulder high, for Dugan had spoken and Dugan had been heard. Later that day, Malcolm X spoke at the Parliament building to members of the Ghanaian legislature. This pleased Malcolm very much because he had never before had the opportunity to address black men who made laws for black people. I remember Malcolm standing on the steps of the Parliament building just before his scheduled appearance, saying, "If I had grown up in a country where black men made the justice, who knows what my life would have been like." After Malcolm spoke these words, we were carried into the main legislative chambers. The ministers of Parliament clapped politely as Malcolm was introduced. Malcolm spoke on the degrading status of the Afro-American in the U.S., repeating and re-emphasizing some of the issues he had raised at the university. He described the United States as the master of imperialism, without whose support France, South Africa, Britain, and Portugal could not exist. Malcolm appealed for support from all Africans for their brothers and sisters in the U.S. He said the struggle for civil rights in the U.S. should be switched to a struggle for human rights to enable Africans to raise the matter at the UN. He praised their president, Osagyefo, and said that as a result of his able, sincere, and dedicated leadership, America feared Ghana. Malcolm attacked the American press and explained how it was used to divide people who should be united for a common cause. He further warned the ministers of Parliament that they should be suspicious of every American tour in Ghana. Brother Malcolm ended his talk by saying that for the first time he felt at home. That in any Afro-American who said that he was at home in America was out of his cotton picking mind. Explaining his name X, Malcolm said that Afro-Americans bear white names, the names of their slave master, and as such had lost their language, cultural, and social backgrounds. Although he was not cheered and applauded as enthusiastically as he had been at Legon, his very moving address was followed by a lively discussion during which the ministers of Parliament asked questions of topical interest. That evening, Malcolm met many other important personalities, including Mr. Huang Ha, the Chinese ambassador, the Nigerian ambassador, Dr. McConan of Guyana, the Algerian ambassador, and Nana Nketiah, the Ghanaian minister of culture. The following morning, an account of Malcolm's speech at Legon appeared in the Ghanaian Times. It was entitled, "Negroes Need Your Help," says Mr. X. The article was very favorable and stressed most of the main points in Malcolm's talk. A few individuals, however, criticized the reporting, pointing out that it stressed only those points which restated Nkrumah's overall political objectives and neutralized many of Malcolm's arguments by quoting high American officials who had raised the very same argument. There was no mention of the students' reaction to Malcolm, nor the subsequent parties to celebrate Malcolm's appearance. The last day of Malcolm's 4-day visit was quite eventful. In the morning, he spoke to the students and staff at the Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute at Winneba, and that afternoon, he met its founder, the ex-president of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Now, by the way, Kwame Nkrumah was also educated right here in the U.S. I believe he went to Lincoln University, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so there are all these connections between Africa, the Africans at home and abroad, us being Africans abroad. So That was a good piece. There was more to that. I didn't read the whole thing, but we're going to cut it off there. And we will be seeing you again this weekend. We'll be doing our Doc Ock weekly rewind on Saturday for adults and on Sunday for the children. So if you missed any of our sessions this week, that will be your chance to catch up. We'll do about 4 or 5 pieces as we always do. So you need to catch it. Be on the lookout. Be on time, in time, around time. You need to make time when you can, and just be on time when you can't make time. Meanwhile, this is Doc Ock signing off from Doc Ock at noon and 9. We wish you a very happy day. Peace out, y'all.